Hi, I'm attorney Jack Inman, and today I want to talk about a question that is on anyone's mind who is considering or going through a divorce. The question is, how long does a divorce in Tennessee take? Now, that's a very subjective question because I'm going to give you the lawyer answer of it depends. Now, I'm going to break that down and give you some more actionable answers that you can use and apply to your case so that you can have a better idea of how long it's going to take. So, first step is your divorce agreed or contested? The reason you have to ask yourself that question is because the difference between the two is going to have a huge bearing on how long it's going to take in the court process. Now, I've got another video on what the difference is between an agreed or contested divorce, so I'm not going to delve into that right here. But if you're filing an agreed divorce, then really the limiting factor is the statutory waiting period. You cannot get divorced in a day, you can't get divorced in a week, you can't even get divorced in a month. The statute lays out two separate time frames. First one is if y'all don't have any minor children, then from the date of filing, now that's the date that the divorce is filed. That's not the date that you guys sign everything. That's the date that it's actually received by the clerk, stamped, filed. That starts the clock. If you don't have minor kids, there's a 60-day waiting period. Now, does that mean on day 60, you're going to be officially divorced? Not necessarily, right? The judge has to sign this thing called the final decree that makes you officially divorced. The judge has the right to sign that after the 60 days has gone by, but judges don't always sign it on that specific day, right? Sometimes it sits around for a while, and you may not be divorced for a couple of weeks, sometimes a month after that waiting period runs. But no minor kids, the waiting period is 60 days. So at the very fastest, quickest you could possibly go, you're looking at 2 months. If you do have minor children, the statutory waiting period is longer. It is 90 days, 3 months if you can do math. So when you file, you've got to wait at least 90 days before your divorce is going to be finalized. Now, again, may not be signed on the 90th day. You're going to have at least 3 months, and it could take longer. It could take a couple weeks longer. It could take a month or two longer. It just depends on how long it takes for the final decree to get in front of the judge and the judge to have time to review it and sign it. Sometimes, even in agreed divorces, right? Even when you file everything together and so on and so forth, the judge wants to hear from the parties, and the judge will have a hearing just to talk to the parties and see if whatever you guys have filed is in the child's best interest, or if there's some questions about the MDA and whether it's fair and equitable. So things can drag out even in agreed divorces. But generally speaking, you're looking at 60 days if you don't have minor kids, 90 days if you do have minor kids. And again, that's the absolute fastest time frame. It's not always that quick. All right. Now, contested divorces. This is where it gets really hairy, and my answer is going to continue to be it depends, but I'm going to give you the things that it does depend on. Most cases go through a fairly somewhat similar process. Now, there are certainly outliers that drag on for much longer, and there are also cases that are resolved much faster. But the typical divorce case has a process of you file, you get the other party served. That can take a few weeks. It can take a few months. Just depends on how long it takes for the constable or the process server to find the other party and get him served. Once that happens, then the other party has 30 days to file an answer. So right there, you're looking at a month, 2 months, right? Just on initial pleadings. From there, the parties may want to do some initial discovery. In fact, I usually encourage people to do a little bit of discovery before you move on to the next step, even if you have a pretty good idea of what the assets are at play. The next step for most cases is going to mediation, right? Mediation from the date you reach out to the mediator to the date the actual mediation takes place, usually a month or two, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes faster. It just depends on everybody's schedule. So right off the rip, you're looking at anywhere from, a month to do the initial pleadings and service and all of that to 2 months scheduled. You're about 3 months in before you get to mediation. And again, some cases it takes way longer to get to mediation. Some cases it happens faster. But general rule of thumb, 3.5, 4 months, you should be at the mediation table. At the mediation table, you can be fully resolved with your divorce at that day and walk away with documents that resolve everything. And then it's just a matter of getting the judge to sign off on them. So if it's a contested divorce, generally speaking, about the fastest you're going to be through the case is going to be at that mediation date, which again is going to be somewhere between 3-4 months from the date that you file your divorce. Now, if mediation does not resolve your case, then the next step is the slow and steady march towards a trial. Now, it takes a while to get trials set up. Chances are you're going to do some more discovery. You're probably going to get really deep into the weeds on discovery at this point. You may do depositions. You may just do a whole bunch of written discovery. Just depends on case by case. Once you get through all that, you may have some motions in addition, but ultimately you're going to wind up at a trial. And this varies greatly, and there's this really not any kind of guarantee as to how fast things are going to go in your case. But generally speaking, a trial happens anywhere from 8 months after filing to, say, a little bit over a year after filing. Seems like a long time, and it is a long time, but the court process moves slowly. Things don't happen overnight. There's a whole lot of stuff that has to get done before you can have a successful trial. So both parties want to make sure they're going through the process so that when they show up to the court, they're fully prepared. They know all the assets, they know all the information they think they need to know, and they're ready to argue your case. So, again, at a minimum, you're looking at 2 months if you don't have kids, 3 months if you do have kids. That's the absolute fastest you can get divorced in Tennessee. If you get resolved at mediation, usually mediation takes place anywhere from 3 to 4 months after filing, sometimes faster, sometimes longer, just depends. If you go all the way to a trial, budget a year, right? It could happen in 8 months, could happen in 2 years, right? But I would budget about a year from the date of filing to the date you're standing in front of the court having your full big divorce trial. Hope that gives you some guidance. I know that's a wide range of things to expect. Just is going to depend on your unique facts and how fast your case moves through the court system. If you need help with a divorce, if you need help with a custody matter, anything relating to family law, give my office a call. My number is 423-777-8396. We service the entire Tri-Cities, Tennessee area. Hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you again soon.